to honor the United States of America, will you please rise, remove your hats for the singing of our national anthem this evening by the Colgate 13 from Colgate University.
What so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight, o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
Like many other older established American schools, Colgate University has some unique traditions. It is said to have been established in 1819 by 13 Baptists with $13 and 13 prayers. Yet, why do the numinous origins of this mysterious number 13 always escape definition? Hi, I'm Gary Moeller. Did 13 elusive men pull 13 equivocal dollars with 13 esoteric vespers to spawn what Colgate is today? Located at 13 Oak Drive, Hamilton, New York, zip code 13346, which represents the number 13 plus another 13. You know, the 13 you get when you add up the last 3 digits, 3 plus 4 plus 6. Surely somebody, somewhere, perhaps also high up in the federal government, believes in an omnipotent magic conjured by the number 13. According to Plato, it was Socrates who said he or she whose life lies unexamined lives one not worth living. And schools whose past lies unexamined, we might ask analogously, are they perhaps not worth attending? Yale University has under its aegis the infamous Skull and Bones Secret Society, whose 322 logo conceals a similar shibboleth. Add the first number 3 to the product of the first and second numbers, 3 times 2. Then add to this the product of the second and third numbers, 2 times 2. Et voila! Yet again, another tiresome 13. What role does numerology play in government and academia? How can self-examination continue to elude institutions with stellar scholarship such as these? For the purposes of our inquiry, triskaidekaphilia is defined as a behavioral disorder characterized by an irrational obsession with a numen or occult power, subjectively perceived to emanate from the number 13. It is associated with overindulgence in the practices of necromancy, Freemasonry, numerology, and esotericism. Among any general healthy population, it may afflict one person in 10,000, nay, no more than 1 in 1,000. In 1819, the year of Colgate's founding, the Freemasonry behind the Great Seal of their country was not unknown to the denizens of the original 13 United States. Crudely redundant, It included an olive branch with 13 leaves and 13 berries, 13 arrows, 13 stars, and 13 stripes, inscribed with New World Order, Novus Ordo Seclorum, one forged from many, E Pluribus Unum, which is also 13 letters. Our undertaking is favored by an encapsulated Cyclops, the one-eyed pagan deity of light, ensconced atop a 13-pedestaled pyramid, Annuit Coeptis, again 13 letters. Given this ideological zeitgeist, why not 13 letters in Colgate's Deo et Veritati, for God and truth as well? Colgate's tradition of 13, pandemic triskaidekaphilia, which flourishes in an academic setting, seems to be an oxymoron. Or is it just a splendid anomaly? It stands inherently inimical to reason, yet why does triskaidekaphilia prevail? Maybe a hint to our answer lies in how it has been propagated through the vector of freshman orientations and yearly initiation rites. To borrow the Freemasons' vernacular, every incoming class enters the Novus Ordo Seclorum, a new world order. All of us know this experience. As neophytes, we feel disoriented whenever our mores of rational judgment loosen. In order to become accepted, we accept what we are told. 13 is the school tradition. We accept this dictum as an a priori truth. It's just a new custom, a social rule to be followed. We learn it as a self-evident tautology because, as everyone says, the school tradition is 13. Triskaidekaphilia survives, not as a fossil of 19th century esotericism, but as an artificial graft. Among 1,000 uninitiated freshmen, there might just be one 13-obsessed student actually entering in any single year. Or it could take 10 years for one to appear. That makes the natural odds of a true-born triskaidekmaphiliac matriculating pretty slim. Without blind acceptance, any 13 tradition would soon slip into the dustbin of history. Without proactive propagation, it would undoubtedly vanish altogether. Like the ubiquitous number 13, Colgate's torchlight ritual is another Masonic symbol, open to deeper psychological interpretation beyond its prima facie understanding. It is a nocturnal rite, wherein we gather to commune in darkness. We swarm in mass as a crowd, without individual distinction between faculty, alumnus, or student. Against our passion for the climb, Colgate's well-worn campaign mantra, we descend, go down from the chapel with torches of primeval light, whose extraordinarily evanescent flame, yes, we carry, but merely to extinguish in the dark, wet womb of Taylor Lake. The climax of this ceremony becomes the loss of light, the inexorable triumph of darkness at my 30th reunion. A kilted bagpiper of the Mohawk Valley Frasers stood playing as our torches sizzled on the lakeshore. He said he was always there as the light went out. He wailed long into the night, blowing shrill strains of tribute to a shadow resembling the light-bringer Lucifer himself. In the way that a cup can be both half empty and half full, this is simply another interpretation. Ambiguity, intentional or not, garners our fascination and unthinking participation. We descend the hill willy-nilly and bring our light unto the world, or do we enact something else? The bagpiper's words, "I am here, always here as the light goes out," gave me pause for thought. Rituals are shadow play. We go through the motions. We dance to another's tune. Paeans to unseen forces. Composed by whom? Colgate's Baptist roots have instilled commitment to learning and community. Its unwritten Masonic cipher has bequeathed irrational attachment to numerology and a frenetic fixation upon auguries of the numinous figure 13. Herein lies the enigma of its founding, which lets us answer the mystery of that unrecorded Colgate 13th prayer. In our attempt to understand that prayer's relevance to events in our recent past, let's sidetrack now to recall a fireside chat with Colgate's great professor emeritus of psychology, the late George Hoban Estabrooks. So who, you might be asking, exactly was this illustrious professor? Hi, I'm Gary Moeller. One of my more prescient moments at Colgate was an evening with George Estabrooks. Nestled into quiet retirement in the fall of 1970, you might see him at convocation in crimson regalia. Estabrooks was well known as the inscrutable professor emeritus of psychology to students back then, because, quite simply, many of us had little inkling of his reputation as one of the greatest authorities on hypnotism in the world at large. George Hoban Estabrooks was born in Canada in 1895. This renowned Canadian-American psychologist was a Harvard University graduate, a Rhodes Scholar, and chairman of the Department of Psychology at Colgate University from 1938 every year up until his retirement. As a leading expert on hypnosis, he was best known for hypnotically programming U.S. government agents during World War II. He held the second highest hierarchical honor of Freemasonry, the 32nd degree. For both the CIA and FBI during the Cold War years, he had been their go-to man, and involved in top-secret projects, a subject rarely mentioned. In November, Ron Richardson, class of 71, had arranged an evening chat to be held in the Brigham Dining Lounge of Cutton Complex. As the doors to the dining hall swung closed, a couple dozen students gathered in the presence of our esteemed guest, and refreshments were served: wine, cider, canapes, an odd bit of fruit, smuggled from next door. Then, plucking up my courage, I led off with the first question, followed by another from someone else. Can anyone become hypnotized? How does hypnosis work? Estabrooks' visage of 75 years wore the weary detachment of a wise man, steeped in the lesser-known ways in which the world really turns. He regarded the naivety that oozed from our freshly scrubbed faces with a kind of cynical bemusement. His clairvoyant gaze saw the canvas of a bigger picture and savored its subtleties as if he were essaying a work of pointillist art. What he truly saw, in any case, was a bit beyond our field of vision then. Little details like these somehow happened to stick in a young myopic mind. Professor Estabrooks briefly surveyed his rapt audience, then kicked off the evening, circumambulating his topic.
Let me begin by means of example. One of the most fascinating but dangerous applications of hypnosis is its use in military intelligence. This is a field with which I am familiar through formulating guidelines for the techniques used by the United States in 2 world wars.
War, the Vietnam War in particular, was palpable that year. In May, 5 students were shot dead at Kent State University, right after Colgate students had marched on Washington to demand that U.S. Secretary of State William P. Rogers, class of '34, step down. By the way, Rogers resigned as Colgate trustee, but he kept his other job. Escalation of war wasn't spun as surge back then. Everyone leaned forward to better hear the elder warrior who sat before us. Estabrooks wiped his brow and sighed.
Communication in war is always a headache.
He paused to explain.
Codes can be broken. A professional spy may or may not stay bought. Your own man may have unquestionable loyalty, but his judgment is always open to question. The hypnotic courier, on the other hand, provides a unique solution. I was involved in preparing many subjects for this work during World War II. One successful case involved an Army Service Corps captain whom we shall call George Smith. Captain Smith had undergone months of training. He was an excellent subject, but did not realize it. I had removed from him, by post-hypnotic suggestion, all recollection of ever having been hypnotized.
Swirling the drink in his glass, Estabrooks began to elaborate.
First, I had the Service Corps call the captain to Washington and tell him they needed a report of the mechanical equipment of Division X, headquartered in Tokyo. Smith was ordered to leave by jet the next morning, pick up the report, and return at once. Consciously, that was all he knew, and it was the story that he gave his wife and friends. And then I put him under deep hypnosis and gave him orally a vital message to be delivered directly on his arrival in Japan to a certain colonel. Let's say his name was Brown, of military intelligence. Outside of myself, Colonel Brown was the only person who could hypnotize Captain Smith. This is locking. I performed it by saying to the hypnotized captain, "Until further orders from me, only Colonel Brown and I can hypnotize you. We will use a signal phrase. The moon is clear." Whenever you hear the phrase from Brown or myself, you will pass instantly into deep hypnosis. When Captain Smith reawakened, he had no conscious memory of what had happened in trance. All that he was aware of was that he must head for Tokyo to pick up a division report. On arrival there, Smith reported to Brown, who hypnotized him with the signal phrase. Under hypnosis, Smith delivered my message and received one to bring back. Awakened, he was given the division report and returned home by jet. There, I hypnotized him once more with the signal phrase, and he spieled off Brown's answer that had been dutifully tucked away in his unconscious mind,
said Estabrooks, tapping his forehead. He snapped his fingers to rivet our attention.
The system is virtually foolproof. As exemplified by this case, the information was locked in Smith's unconscious for retrieval by the only two people who knew the combination. The subject had no conscious memory of what happened, so could not spill the beans. No one else could hypnotize him, even if they might know the signal phrase.
Scarcely 2 years had passed since the Los Angeles murder of Robert F. Kennedy in 1968. The assassin, Sirhan Sirhan, was found to be in a deep trance. The subject had no conscious memory of what had happened. No one could spill the beans. I wondered, is this what Estabrooks meant by locking? Thinking along similar lines, somebody in the front interrupted. Professor Estabrooks pondered the question in a low refrain.
Is hypnosis dangerous? It can be. Under certain circumstances, it is dangerous in the extreme. It has even been known to lead to murder. Given the right combination of hypnotist and subject, hypnosis can be a lethal weapon.
We considered the various possibilities.
I can hypnotize a man without his knowledge or consent into committing treason against the United States.
Estabrooks lingered to let the effect sink in.
The key to creating an effective spy or assassin rests in splitting a man's personality or creating a multiple personality with the aid of hypnotism. This is not science fiction. This has and is being done. I have done it.
The crowd tittered uneasily, then relaxed as a warm, omniscient chuckle rippled across the room. That. Estabrooks, catching on to the joke, stifled a curt guffaw. Anecdotal tales of him hypnotizing people on campus and getting them to carry out tasks without their knowledge or consent, having them return library books, or even compelling unwary students to reveal fraternity secrets and details of private love affairs were Colgate lore. Long before its print and screen depictions, George Estabrooks at Colgate investigated the working concept of a Manchurian candidate. Spy warfare notwithstanding, the signs of Estabrooks' studies of multiple personality disorder have been legion. A better understanding of Sirhan Sirhan's affliction is perhaps one example. Similar candidates have suffered its many symptoms. The stealthiest and least witting among them have stolen numerous lives. Now, over 45 years later, there are somnambulists in all walks of American life prosaically going about their mental tasks, many more than Professor Estabrooks could have ever swayed or imagined. Like Shiva's mesmeric wheel of destruction, we all know the swirling, hypnotic effect of the Twin Towers hit by jets and collapsing, because its demolition looped ad infinitum on every channel for a week after that fateful day. We know the Pancake Man, too. He wore a black Harley motorcycle baseball cap, dashed in, and suggested a pancake collapse almost before the collapse.
I was watching with my roommate. It was approximately several minutes after the first plane had hit. I saw this plane come out of nowhere and just ream right into the side of the Twin Tower, exploding through the other side. And then I witnessed both towers collapse, one first and then the second, mostly due to structural failure because the fire was just too intense.
We know how the U.S. flag unfurled within hours behind banners of a new Pearl Harbor or America attacked, both melting into America at war. We know how news anchormen insisted for weeks that we call the site of the demolition Ground Zero, even though ground workers had named it the pile, which is exactly what it was. We know that unscathed, Building 7 collapsed in sympathy with Buildings 1 and 2, because we heard it on the BBC that evening, half an hour before it did. News before it happens. And we never heard about it again. The medium is the massage, Marshall McLuhan once observed. Blinders, sensory deprivation as well, our subliminal Svengali in front of us, with our eyes wide shut.
It was getting late. As a most remarkable evening was drawing to its close, Estabrooks summed things up.
What has been done once can be done again,
he forewarned.
It is child's play now to develop a multiple personality through hypnotism. I'd say 1 person in 5 makes a good subject for hypnosis, while perhaps roughly 1 in 20 is excellent.
Estabrooks grinned as his gaze panned over his audience for the last time. He drew a deep breath. In a roundabout way, he had saved his answer to our first question for last.
Only a people who refuse to permit themselves to sink into intellectual lethargy and conformity, only a people who question and think, can be sure that hypnosis, disguised or direct, will not undermine their freedom and rob them of their very lives.
By this, he unmistakably meant that even college professors are not totally immune. Can anyone become hypnotized? The inscrutable George Estabrooks just smiled.
Hello, I'm your host, Gary Moeller. I hasten to mention that this personal account of mine has been entirely non-fictional. Given in November 1970, this very same informal talk became both the basis for and precursor of Estabrooks' written article, Hypnosis Comes of Age, published in the April 1971 issue of Science Digest, from which I have drawn quotations at length. For the sake of absolute accuracy and authenticity, the entire dialogue has consisted solely of direct quotes from written sources. Ancillary remarks have referred to true historical events.